Welcome to Sober Talk. I'm Dennis and I have lived experience of alcohol. If you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or check out their website on aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other. They must solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Hi, my name is Grant. I'm an alcoholic. I appreciate the opportunity to come and share a little bit about my experience with alcoholism and recovery, which I found in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got sober at the end of 1995, which is a while back. I was 30 years old when I got sober. And, AA has done for me what I couldn't do for myself, really. I was in a lot of trouble with drinking and really despaired of ever finding any way forward or any way out of it. And my life was not looking good. And I've been able to have a long-term sobriety in AA, and I've been able to have a good life. But I guess to start at the beginning, really, to tell my story as it was, I used to be normal. I say that, although some people I know would dispute it. But, just growing up as a kid, I was as mum and dad, 3 boys and a cat, and just everything looked normal on the outside. It was a good church upbringing, and there was nothing that I could, pinpoint my alcoholism on. I'm not, an alcoholic because I was abused as a child or, there's no alcoholism particularly running in my family that I'm aware of. But when I was about 15 and discovered alcohol, and it felt like a discovery, like sobriety was never quite enough again. Really, alcohol did for me what I couldn't do for myself. It took me from being that shy, neurotic, insecure kid to making a scene and being the life of the party. And I'd gone out with some of my brother's older mates, and they were laughing at my jokes, and I really felt that I fit in, and that was unusual for me. That was at the beginning of the night. By the end of the night, I'd get spewed up in this guy's car, and he was not happy, and he took me home, pushed me out the car, and that was the end of that. And I was sick as a dog the next day. But I remember I never thought, that was a bad thing to do, Grant. I just thought, that was a lot of fun, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it again. And I didn't turn into a gutter drunk overnight from a schoolboy, but I headed in that direction. I set my life up so that I could drink at every possible opportunity, and alcohol really worked for me. It got me out of myself, got me into the scene, and I had a lot of fun, and I had a good life, and I eventually got a job, and it was manageable to a large extent. Yet it was always true that when I drank, I overdid it. I might set out to have just a couple of beers, but after a couple more seemed like a good idea. I was forced to stop a few times. I remember running out of booze. It's just the worst feeling for me as a drinker, to start off and then have to stop. And I made sure that I had enough to do the job. If I was going to drink, I knew that I was going to make a night of it. And so I set my life up so that I could drink that way. I drink like a pig, really. But, although there was trouble, and there was trouble right from the word go, although there was trouble, alcohol and drinking was a fine life. And I just really loved it. And, I got into trouble with the constabulary. I got caught with my hand in a till and got done for some drunk and disorderly, just the little stuff. But I was court-ordered to drug and alcohol treatment as a minor. So I was, 17 years old, and the judge knew that alcohol was a problem for me. But I was 30 when I finally got sober. And it wasn't for lack of trying, you know. I really didn't like the messy life, the consequences of my drinking, and it was never my intention to be such a unit. I would pick fights. I used to say I got in fights, but I got beat up a lot is what it was. And, you know, I just had a knack for getting in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was never my intention to, you know, leave my wife at home and dinner on the table. It was never my intention to let down work and let down myself, really. And, you know, it seemed that the worse my drinking got, the worse I felt about myself because of my drinking, the more I needed to drink to be able to live with it. I came to see alcohol as my medicine. You know, I drank and I felt better. And what more is there to it, really? I would try and not drink for a while. You know, as I say, the psychologists and the judge and the police and my dad and my wife were all on my back saying, Grant, you drink too much, stop drinking and you'll be all right. And that makes good sense. There's good logic in that. But the problem was I would stop drinking and I would just feel terrible. You know, I'd remember the stuff that I'd done, and little by little it was like the spring inside my gut would get tighter. And, you know, she wasn't treating me right. He's looking at me funny. This guy cut me off, and I'm just angsty. I'm restless. I'm irritable. I'm discontent. And I know what'll fix that, you know, just a couple of pints of beer, you know, that happy, rosy glow. And I'm great. You know, that's my favourite feeling in the world, just a couple of pints of beer. You know, if I could have kept it at a couple of pints of beer, I'd be down the pub now having a couple of pints of beer. But I never did, you know. I'd set off that way with that intention, but I never did, you know. And with every good reason not to pick up a drink, I would pick it up. I remember one Thursday night I'd sworn off. I was in trouble with the missus again, and that's it. I'm not drinking tonight. And I was at the back of the house, and we're on a hill looking down to the pub, actually. And I'm in a hammock and trying to read a book and smoking cigarettes, and I could see down the hill to this hotel. It was the Blair Athol Hotel. It had a big flashing sign on the top of it, Blair Athol Hotel, Blair Athol Hotel. I thought, that's it. Don't go. You said you're not going to drink tonight. And that's right, I'm not going to drink tonight. Blair Athol Hotel, Blair Athol. And it would just play in my mind, you know. And then I'd screw it, you know, I'm going for a walk, you know, I'm just going to take the dog out for a walk with a pocket full of change, you know, and I'd get a bottle of port and I'd be off and running again. I just couldn't fight alcohol. It's strange because in a lot of other areas in my life, I was successful. I was doing okay at work, you know, when I didn't have a hangover anyway. But, you know, I was not that I was a total incompetent. And I had great willpower. I had great willpower when it was concerned to getting a drink. I didn't have much when it was concerned to not having a drink. But in a lot of ways, my life was good. But I was screwing it up with my drinking. And, you know, an alcoholic is not necessarily a bad person, but a sick person. You know, and I come to see alcoholism as a disease. I was forced into AA. I certainly didn't come willingly, and I heard it was just at I think it was a church hall, and there was a bunch of guys there. I was 30 at the time, so they all seemed like old guys to me, and you know, they were talking about their drinking. Most people had told me what I needed to do about my drinking. A lot of people were happy to tell me what my problem was and what I needed to do about it. But that's not what I found in AA. I found a bunch of people who are just sharing their experience. And they say you can tell an alcoholic, but you can't tell him much. It was certainly true for me. I did not trust people, and I certainly wasn't open to help. But I heard my problem that night. You know, I heard people telling their drinking stories, and they had drunk like I had. They had lost the ability to control the amount they took once they got the lid off, and I was certainly that way. I didn't like to run out, and they had lost the ability to just say no to alcohol, and I was certainly that way. And you know, I believed from there that I'd be alcoholic, But unfortunately, I did not see that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous or the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous was going to fix my problem. Because what I heard was, that's it, Grant, you're not going to drink anymore. And I ran away. Like, that was the worst thing I could think of not having a drink. And so I kept drinking, and life got worse. I lost my license and the missus kicked me out. I remember the day I blew it with the missus. I'd lost my license and I was working at a timber joint and I was next door to a hotel. The night before I'd put one on and I was in trouble and my wife gave me the ultimatum. She said, "That's it, boyo. One more drink and you're out." And she was very clear. Well, one alcoholic beverage of any sort and we're gone. We're finished. You're out of here. But, it was Friday night. I'm on the buses. I thought I'll just have a couple of quick pints and no one will be any the wiser. And, of course, I never do have just a couple. I had a few. But, and when I got home, not that late, not that drunk, I was out. She kicked me out. And I think about, my thought process before doing that. I think about what was going through your head, because I was stone cold sober when I made the decision to go drinking. But I never said to myself, I would rather have 2 pints of beer than my marriage, than my child, than my house, the garden, the whole life. But that's what I did, All I thought about, like a horse in blinders, all I thought about was that happy, rosy glow of 2 pints of beer. And even today when I think about drinking, I think about the happy stuff. I don't think about the broken bones and the broken promises and all of the mess, and that flawed thinking, that obsession for alcohol, that remembered solution of my mother's milk, my medication always sent me back to drinking. And once the lid was off, I was gone for all money. And so, that's a really powerless place to be. I knew that I couldn't keep drinking the way that I was. I was living with a fella from work now, and it was end days. It should have been party time, but I'm a bachelor again. But it wasn't. I just couldn't bear to be me anymore, and I didn't think that I could be sober either. I'd looked at AA. And so I couldn't be happy sober and I couldn't be happy and successful as a drunk. And I really was in a powerful mess is what I was in. And I don't know, I set a D-Day and I drank my way up to November 1 in 95 and I put the plug in the jug and, just brought out my old willpower. Like, it was like holding my breath underwater, this sobriety game. But I was about a week into it and someone got into my face and said, "Well, what's different for you this time, Grant? We've heard you swear off 1,000 times and you've never been able to give it a rest." And I had to admit there was nothing different. It was just me trying not to drink. And they said, "Well, if you're serious about it," one of those finger wagging people and in my face, "if you're serious about staying sober, why don't you come and do this rehab?" And I clocked into the Salvation Army in Whitmore Square. It was a home for derelict alcoholic men is what it was. And they said, "Well, we'll let you do it as an outpatient." I still had my job but you got to go to AA. And by this time I was cornered and I said, "Okay, well, no worries, I'll do it." And I went back to AA and I really didn't expect to hear anything different. And I guess I didn't hear anything different, but I was in a different place. I was broken enough that when presented with a way out, it was an easy choice for me to do it. I could see that I drank like these people, that I was powerless over alcohol, that I had no solution, no way to stop, that I'd not been able to do it by myself. And I could see that I believed that I was the same as these people, and I could see that they had stopped. There was a credibility to what they were saying. They knew the game, they knew the drinking game, but they were obviously sober, and even better, they were happy about it. And so I made a decision that I'm going to keep coming back, and I'm going to go to another meeting. And I haven't had a drink since. No alcohol and none of those street drugs or anything like that. I haven't needed to get out of my head. Really, I like the vernacular around drinking, like get off my face, get out of my head, because it was my thinking that I was running away from. It was me that was the problem, and alcohol was my solution. And so I came into AA, and I knew that for me it wouldn't do to just sit around and kind of come late and leave early and watch people get sober. I knew that I was going to have to give it my best shot, that if I was going to be able to survive at all. And, so I jumped in and I joined a group, and I shook hands with people and I talking with people, and I found a community of people traveling in the same direction, people who had the same problem as me, but also had a solution that meant me well. It had been a long time since I'd met anybody who meant me well. I've heard alcoholism called the lonely man's disease. It certainly was that way for me. So going to meetings of AA, and, there's about 70 different groups in Adelaide, all sorts of different people and different formats. But the basic premise of AA is one alcoholic talking to another. And I found that I fit in. I found that there was a place for me here. And that's the first legacy of Alcoholics Anonymous, fellowship. The second legacy is recovery, that there be a textbook which is like the instructions on how to get sober. I mean, who'd have thought? The 12 steps, they were called, and I thought, here's the God part, here's the religion, this is it, no more fun of any kind. Sit up straight and be a good boy, Grant, because fun is over. And I thought I was going to have to live up to somebody else's doctrine and dogma and ethics and morals. It turned out to be a lot worse. I had to live up to my own. Nobody's told me what to believe, but they've suggested that I better believe in something, that I better find some power greater than myself. And to begin with, it was the AA group, and it was the AA program. It was a good, practical way for me to look at what I was doing, the way that, look at what my problem is, look at the way that I've been acting in the world and the way that I've been treating other people, and really just to stop doing what's not working. It's not rocket science, really. I mean, here's me drinking copious amounts of alcohol, a depressant, and just acting from selfishness and self-centeredness, always on the take. And lo and behold, it doesn't make me feel good. And what was suggested is just about 180 degrees opposite than that, I start living a bit cleaner and start taking some positive actions. And of course, the results of positive actions are positive. And I started feeling better. So, I've had a chance to kind of live up to my own ideals a bit more and be the person that I want to be. And, I can pass a mirror and look myself in the eye, and I'm okay with me today. I couldn't bear to before. The third legacy of Alcoholics Anonymous is service. And ultimately, that idea of mine, the way that I operated in the world was, what can I get to make me feel better? And it never really worked. And the best it brought was oblivion. It was fun for a little while, but then there's a price to pay. And the best it brought me was oblivion. And AA has demonstrated that the opposite is true. As little by little I turn to be a giver instead of a taker, I feel better about myself. And that's why I was drinking, to feel better about myself. Who'd have thought just to act better, I would feel better. And AA has given me like a solid place to do that. It's a very rich and textural place, AA. There's so many different people, all sorts of walks of life and demographic. If AA is a disease, as the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association classify alcoholism as a disease, and it's no respecter of that sort of demographic. And so we see young and old, men and women, all nationalities. We got ditch diggers, bricklayers, we got lawyers and policemen. We've got all sorts in AA, and we've got all sorts recovering. And I got a lot of friends in AA, and I care about the people in AA, and I think that they care about me. That I have been able to form a place to belong in AA, and the best thing that I do really is to try and help another alcoholic. That maybe something that I say can say, yeah, I'm like that too. If somebody can relate to say, well, you know what, I'm drinking out of control, but this guy says he was, and now he's sober, and I believe what he's saying. So if I can encourage you to, get to a meeting and have a look on the AA website, or call the AA 24-hour phone line and talk to another alcoholic, because there's hope in AA. There's life after sobriety, and a sober year before I got back together with my wife. And, we subsequently had another child, and work started going better for me because I wasn't so drunk, and because I had, an opportunity to really live by my ideals and live better. And things have been working out for me, but best of all, I can live with the person that I am. I am okay. I don't have to drink to be able to live with me, and that's a great thing. So, if you're thinking about coming to AA, just come for a look. It doesn't cost anything to put your head in the door and to sit down and hear some stories, and maybe someone in AA will be telling your story, and maybe if you're having a problem with alcohol, AA might be a solution. So thank you for letting me share, and I wish you well.
We have local meetings for the full week in the local area. Monday is Gala meeting at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Wednesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Thursday is Two Wells at 8 o'clock. And Friday is Salisbury at 8 o'clock. There's a meeting at Deveron Park at 12 o'clock. And on Sunday there's a meeting in Salisbury at 7 o'clock. And many other meetings in the area. For details of your local meetings, please phone 1300 22 2222. And once again, if anyone you know is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 22 2222. The website is aaSouthAustralia.org.au.